So in my last video, I talked about the Thuren rear track bar, which made the truck more stable while we're driving on the freeway or when we've got heavy loads, basically just keep the truck rocking back and forth, or from rocking back and forth. But the next thing that I installed was the Thuren front track bar. Now, I wasn't necessarily planning on doing it, but I was driving one day on the freeway and I experienced death wobble for the first time. Now, if you've never experienced it before, it's pretty alarming. And even if you have experienced it before, it's still pretty alarming. And I wasn't pleased about it. I was okay. We just slowed down and it went away. But if my wife was driving the truck or, I don't know, there's something in the road I need to avoid, it makes, of course, doing so more difficult. So it'd be not a good thing. So I decided, since I just installed the rear track bar, that I would go ahead and install the front one as well. So I ordered that, of course, from their site, got it pretty quickly. Installation for it was pretty easy. The biggest thing is that in order to adjust the length of the track bar, which you do depending on how high your truck is and what suspension and lift you have to have a big ass 33 millimeter or like 1 5/16 inch wrench, which is huge. And I didn't actually have that. So I did have to go to the store and buy it. Now, if you have Thuren springs and set up, then you don't need to buy anything or adjust anything because it comes preset. So I do wish that they maybe had a front track bar that was preset to a certain length, so that way you could order it whether you have stock suspension or aftermarket. So that would have been kind of nice, because otherwise you have to put over 200 like foot-pounds of on this darn bar. Now I've got a picture here of how I was able to do so. Basically, I used the rear trailer hitch and a little crowbar and shoved it through there, and then I was able to use my weight basically to tighten it down. If you've got more than one person, of course, that would be ideal. But otherwise, I mean, that was a pretty easy, straightforward install to get done, and bolted everything, got the old one off, put the new one on pretty quickly. Now, I've only had the front one on now for a couple weeks, but in that time period, I haven't experienced any death wobble or anything like that. So I don't know necessarily if that for sure fixed it, but it couldn't have hurt, because it's only making everything more stable and keeps everything aligned the way it should. So hopefully we'll have good luck with that. Now, the other thing that I swapped out was the front drag link, and that is the arm, the bar basically that connects from your steering pitman arm to the steering knuckle, or I guess the knuckle, whatever you want to call it. And so the problem with the factory one is that, one, I'd seen like 2 pictures of bent ones. I don't know that I would have bent one, because I'm not usually doing anything too crazy, since this is normally the vehicle that needs to get me to and from trips. But some people had bent them. But there was also a recall. Now, the recall was because while driving around, I guess people would have theirs come loose, and then as you're driving, your steering wheel would get more and more, cockeyed. And if you ignored it long enough, it could theoretically disconnect, and then you'd have no control over your steering. You would for sure crash. So because of that, they don't necessarily have a fix out yet for it. And so if you buy one and you submit it through the site, they will cut you a check. So Fiat, Chrysler, America, whoever it is, Ram, Dodge, I don't care, cut me a check basically to cover the cost of this new front replacement bar. Now, while I was replacing that bar, I figured, what the heck, while we're in there, let's go ahead and replace the steering tie rod. Now, Synergy makes a kit that has both the drag link and the tie rod all in one, or one package basically. It saves a little bit of money, and so I ordered that and got that, of course, installed, and everything went pretty smoothly. Most of the bolts I was able to undo and just hammer out, but there was the one on the pitman arm where I could not get it loose. I tried all sorts of stuff. I tried beating the hell out of it with a sledgehammer. I tried using a jack even, so I jacked it up and tried to push the bolt through. That didn't work. Finally, I had a little ball joint kind of puller thing, and I was able to wedge that on there, and I was actually able to break it loose with that. So that was probably the hardest, most difficult part of the install, was getting that loose. But all things considered, the installation went pretty easily, and I tried to measure everything best I could to the factory items. But of course, I can't do that perfectly, so I did get an alignment afterward. Now the alignment, I got to Thuren suspensions specifications for what they say works the best for handling. So I did get that set up, and the truck steering feels phenomenal now. Now, since installing everything, stuff has worked great. I've had no death wobble experience since then, although before that, ironically, I had only had it that one day 3 times in a row. So I'm not sure what was going on there. But that was the first time I'd ever experienced it. But after that, I was like, no, you know what? Let's just order the new front track bar to alleviate and at least eliminate that possibility as being a problem. Now, the steering components went together pretty easily as well. And I wasn't expecting a huge notice or change in things. The biggest thing that I think I feel now is when I'm driving, now that I've got the Synergy stuff set up, when I hit bumps and everything, they seem to be absorbed and I don't feel them in the wheel. Now, I don't recall having like huge issues before, so I'm guessing it's probably just a placebo effect, but I didn't really remember having any difficulty, like I said before, but I don't know, just everything feels smoother. And especially after the alignment, I know that the truck is basically going to be able to handle as best as it can, and make sure that I don't have a lot of, weird tire wear or anything like that because my toe is out of whack. So anyway, that's kind of my little review of the Thuren front track bar, as well as the Synergy drag link and the tie rod. So everything's working perfectly. I like knowing that I've got stronger components up there, and hopefully stuff that'll make the truck a little bit more appealing to drive, especially when we're fully loaded up. We've got tons of stuff, and now I don't have to worry about bending my tie rod. Of course, my concern now is where have I moved the weak link to? I don't know. So hopefully I don't ever find out. But that is my one concern with having the upgraded tie rod, is that before with the factory one, I've seen guys bend them, and usually you're able to bend it back. Not perfectly, but at least drivable. So now I just fear, if that's not bending, then something else might be. But I guess, hopefully we'll never find out what that part ends up being. Oh, also with the Synergy kit, if you do manage to bend it, they'll give you a new one. So that's cool, of course, and just helpful to know, I guess. But anyway, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put those down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And of course, we'll see you in the next video. And I hope you enjoyed this installation. As I mentioned before, I haven't had any wheel hop.